The Psalms, they're a collection of stories, of understandings about our relationships. If you go through the Psalms, understanding that they were written at a period where the faith had started to take some different understandings and conceptions of who God was, who they were. But the one part about it is that throughout the Psalms, it's a vision of our emotions, our feelings, our responses to life, to real life. It ranges from joy and delight and celebration and thanksgiving to all the way to terror and trauma and doubt and pain and everything in between. It speaks to us today because we still have those same feelings. We're going to look at the 46th Psalm today, the 10th verse. Only half of it, actually. But in these few words, we're going to find some dynamic understandings and some challenges and some encouragements. But rather than me speaking it to you, I've asked Bill if he will sing it to you. Maybe a little different version, but it's be still and know that I am God. Thank you, Bill. I want to share a little bit about that song. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. Simple song. I didn't come across it all on my lonesome. Nancy, my wife, was working one day looking at different songs that might be available for the children in the class to learn. And she started thinking about the different songs that she grew up with that had meaning, but maybe they were simple. And that was one of the songs, Be Still and Know That I Am God, that she thought about. So she went to the website, she Googled it, came up with a different song than what she expected. This is not the traditional hymn at all. But she listened to it, and she listened to it, and she listened to it some more. And it kind of sunk in that, wow, there's something here. When I got home later that day, she hit me at the door and said, Bill, you need, and that's all she needs to say. You know, I've learned after 47 years, we're not quite to 50 yet, don't I? But after 40, now we were married when we were 11, though, so that makes sense. But after 47 years, I've come to understand completely that when my wife starts a phrase like, you need, I know that's what I need to do. She's always been right, it seems like. I do remember in 1987, one time she told me that I need to turn to the left, but I really needed to turn to the right. But other than that, I've learned. When she says you need to do something, I know I really should. I will be a better person for it. So when she completed that sentence, you need to listen to this. I sat down, she played it for me, and I sat there and listened. Let's play it again. I sat and listened. And it sunk in as how they had, this young couple from Iowa, had created this song that just kind of seeps into your soul and embraces you and just says, yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, I asked Bill Bloom if he could sing it. I shared with him the music on the phone. And he said, oh yeah, not a problem. Said, now I'm going to try to get you some sheet music for it. So just to help. And he kind of, But I was committed to do that, so I called and got in touch with one of the singers and said, is there any way I can get the sheet music? I'm not a musician. I need all the help I can get, whether it's recipes or whatever. So I just assumed sheet music would really be nice. He said, no, we don't have any sheet music to that. Well, we're going to sing it at church. Well, if you have a good musician, he can figure it out. Guess what? We've got a good musician. Thank you, Bill. Be still and know that I am God. What are we supposed to do with that, though? They're much more than just words. It's actually an invitation, but it's also kind of a proclamation. Remember what I mentioned about the Psalms? It covers all of our feelings and emotions, and it covers real life. So there's real life involved in this. And so I started trying to figure out how would I present this? How could I share in words somehow what was going on here? I thought about Walter Brueggemann. Many of you are familiar with the name Walter Brueggemann. He is a United Church of Christ minister, theologian, scholar, author, preacher, teacher. He's written over 132 books and still writing. He's well known internationally as well as kind of an expert on the Hebrew Scriptures. And especially when you get into the Psalms, he really has tremendous insights. Somewhere along the line, he mentioned that when you deal with the Psalms, it's like a 3-act play. It starts out with orientation, where we become oriented. And then disorientation. And then reorientation. So I started playing with this particular song, these simple words, this be still and know that I am God, and trying to apply that, what he had said. So I started out, be still. What could that mean? Be still. The word orient simply means to align ourselves in such a way that we will be in a better position. Move ourselves, place ourselves, so that we will see, hear whatever the best we can. Orient ourselves. When you combine that with be still, still is a great Hebrew word. If you go to the foundation, what it means is to be made whole, to be repaired, to find peace, if you will. Be still. It's much more than just sitting there quietly. In church camps, and especially the high school level, many times we would have each day something called morning watch. And we would go out for about 30 minutes. Each person, each kid, each camper was said or told to go by yourself. This is not a group event. Now you have to remember, this was usually in the mountains someplace, by a lake. It was very pretty. But also it was very, very isolated. And so these campers would go out, in the first part of the week, they would struggle just to sit still. They'd be kind of wandering around and, no, this is a quiet time. By midweek, they started moving a little bit, where they could actually sit still for 30 minutes. And they would start taking in the sounds and the sights and the smells. They would start understanding and feeling the presence of nature. And then by the end of the week, the comment would often be said, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about God. No mention of God during that time necessarily, but there is something about being still. That it's not just about being quiet, but it's in terms of aligning yourself so that you can experience a depth that maybe you might miss as you just go rushing through life. Be still. Be still. Orienting ourselves to that healing. Aligning ourselves with that peacefulness. It's an active movement even though you're being still. Orient. Wouldn't that be lovely just to stay right there? But we know we can't. Because the next step, according to Brueggemann and according to life, seems like to become disoriented. And that's the part that says, and know that I am God. That's also one of these phrases that can mean a lot, and it does mean a lot. And know that I am God. If you go into the Hebrew Scriptures, you will find time and time again this concept of God as powerful. Now remember, this is Psalms, and how the Psalms understands their relationship with God. And God has changed quite a bit from the very beginning. But still there's this sense that God is powerful. If you read the earlier part of this psalm, in the 46th psalm, you'll see that they mention time and time about how God is all-powerful, can do things that nobody else can do. That's kind of a theme that runs through it. In the 8th psalm, it talks about how magnificent, how majestic God's name is. And even gives this little image of saying God's fingers, little fingers. That's all it took to create the heavens and the stars. That's all it took. If you go through the Psalms, if you go through the Scriptures, you see this image of God as being all-powerful. And so it could lend this concept of saying, good, we've oriented ourselves to this peaceful place, to this wholeness, to this healing. And surely God is going to help us stay right there since God is all-powerful. Well, guess what? You see, there's that other part. That if we accept God's superior knowledge and wisdom and everything that goes with it somehow, we don't know how that works, but somehow we do. Go to Micah. And what does God require of you? You probably know it. To act justly, to love kindness, to walk humbly with your God. And you keep going throughout the Scriptures and you find that this God who is all-powerful has now told us what we need to do. To act justly. To love kindness. To walk humbly with God. That's a pretty good quotation of what we are to do. It's not just sit still by the lake. It's not just to sit still and soak in the sun and watch the deer go bopping across, but it's to act justly. And we find ourselves then being led to, where is God in the world these days? And we recognize that God is in the tears and joy. God is in the fears and celebrations. God is there, and we are meant to be where God is. So yes, let's celebrate. As Bill, you mentioned, or Lance, I think, about how many joys there were today, but there's also sorrows. Every Sunday we share the sorrows that we know that are existing in the world, the pain that is caused. And so this disorientation happens when we start realizing, oh, we need to join God where there is sorrow. We need to be acting with righteousness, with reaching out. And sometimes when we do that, when we look around, that's when we can become disoriented, confused, frustrated, doubtful. How can we do so much that we have to do? How can we reach out time and time and time again? And sometimes we do become weary. Sometimes we become worn out. Disoriented. We're no longer sitting by that mountain looking over the lake. No, we're looking at people's lives. We're looking at our own lives. And there's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of pain. And that's where we're to be. And that's a hard place to be. That's a difficult challenge for us. And we do become confused sometimes. We become disoriented. Me? To do everything that we need to do? And we might think, what a bad place that might be constantly. And that's when Brueggemann talks about being reoriented. And that's when I started listening to this song. I wonder if that's what it means as they finish be. Be is an interesting word. Whether it's a word, whether it's a prefix, belong, become, behave, believe, because. You can list it in different ways, and I started realizing that this song is helping us to reorient. To not go back to where we were. That's not what reorienting means. It means that we've come through this journey and we're no longer the same. But we can get back. Not the way it used to be, but becoming more attuned to God and what we are to be as who we are now. Be. If you're a car, if you're a truck, if you're an SUV, and you hit a pothole, not if, but when you hit a pothole, you can be fixed. You can be made new. But in our real lives, when we hit these potholes of life, sometimes just a little wiggle, sometimes we knew, well, there goes that alignment. When we hit these potholes, we keep it with us. And sometimes those potholes can dig deep into our soul, dig deep into our spirit. This reorienting doesn't get rid of the potholes, but it enables us to move forward. It enables us to find ways to act justly, to love kindness, to walk humbly. And how does that happen? William Willimon, a United Methodist Church teacher, preacher, again, an author, he talks about how he grew up in Greenville, South Carolina. And he tells the story about as a young man growing up, whenever he was about ready to go out for a new adventure, to explore, to whatever it might be that he was doing, as his hand was almost on the doorknob, he would hear his mother say, "Will, remember who you are." He says that it really irritated him. It really bothered him. Oh, Mom, why? Just let me go. Let me be free. Let me move on. Will, remember who you are. And he said as he grew, he realized what a gift that actually was. Because in remembering who he was, it gave him courage. It gave him confidence to be able to respond to life as it came to him. He was growing. He was changing. But that would reorient him, it would seem, to who he was. He knew that he was the son of Harriet and William Willimon, and he counted that as being something very positive. He knew that he himself had a lot of interest, a lot of desire and passion and commitment and compassion to make a difference in the world. He knew that was good to remember, but he knew also that he was a child of God. And he didn't know what that meant. He'll be the first person to say, I don't know. I had heard it, and that phrase itself just spoke to me. That even when I didn't like myself, even when I might be in arguments, even when it seems like things were not going well, that this being a child of God would bring him back to remembering who he was. And it would give him a chance to re-look at life, to realign himself, to re-examine what was going on, and become. You see, these potholes sometimes in our lives, as we keep track of them, they can wear us down. They can help us become negative. They can help us become cynical. They can help us become defeated. They can help us do everything other than reach out. But when we reorient ourselves, I think by remembering who we are, who we've become, what talents and skills and blessings we have experienced on this journey with God, with this journey with each other. In spite of the potholes, we find us courage. We find us hope. We find us belief that who we are is enough. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know I am. Be still and know. Be still. Be. As William Willimon's mother would call out, Will, remember who you are. Could it be that God is likewise calling out to us? My dear child, remember who you are and be.